There is a moment in history when what was sealed begins to open again, when something long dormant inside humanity starts to stir, and that moment is not in the future, it is happening right now. If you are hearing this, it is not random. You did not just click on another video. You are part of a small number of people who feel it, who sense that something essential has been missing. You have carried that quiet ache for years, that uneasy feeling that the religion you were handed does not fully match the Christ you love, that there is more beneath the surface, more than sermons and rituals ever explained. Deep down, you have always known something was taken, edited, softened, or buried. There are teachings the church never unfolded for you, passages filtered through centuries of power, doctrine, and control. Jesus spoke in parables and symbols not to confuse you, but to shield a truth so liberating it threatened every system built on spiritual dependence. Think about it. Why did he speak of a single eye filling the whole body with light? Why are saints painted with radiant circles around their heads? Why were you never taught that your own body is described as a living temple? These are not childish myths or poetic exaggerations. They point to something real, something within you. For 2,000 years, this layer of meaning has remained hidden in plain sight. Yet something is shifting. You feel it, don't you? This message is not for the crowd. It is a signal for those ready to remember. And before this teaching ends, you will understand why you were meant to hear it. If something in you is still listening, still quietly watching from beneath the noise of your thoughts, then we can begin with one of the strangest lines ever spoken in a sacred text, a line that sounds simple until you really let it sink in. It appears in an old teaching attributed to a wandering rabbi who seemed to enjoy speaking in riddles. He said that the lamp of the body is the eye, and that if your eye is single, your whole body will be filled with light. But if that eye is clouded, the whole body is plunged into shadow. At first, it sounds poetic but confusing. You were born with two eyes, just like almost everyone you have ever met. What could it possibly mean to have a single eye? And how could that strange phrase be connected to your entire being shining or dimming from within? The old teacher was not confused about anatomy. He was pointing at something that does not sit on the surface of your face. It is a different kind of seeing, one that does not stare out at the world, but looks inward and upward at the same time. Across cultures and centuries, people who gave their lives to the inner path seem to know this. If you look at sacred images from around the world, you will notice the same pattern repeating, as if different civilizations were trying to sketch the same secret in their own language of symbols. You see holy figures from India, with a small mark between the eyebrows, a quiet reminder of an inner point of focus. You see ancient carvings from the Nile Valley, where a stylized eye appears in the center of the brow, part symbol, part anatomy, part mystery. You see monks sitting in silence, their gaze turned gently toward that same inner point, as if listening for something behind the thoughts. You see paintings of saints and sages with circles of light around their heads, rings of gold as if the skull itself had become translucent and the inside was shining out. Why there? Why always there? Why does light gather around the upper center of the body in so many of these images? You can feel your own curiosity beginning to pull you in. That is good. Let it. Take a slow breath and notice this simple fact. For thousands of years, long before someone put a screen in your hand, human beings were leaving clues. They seem to know that there is a kind of doorway perched not in the sky above you, but in the quiet interior of your own awareness, and that when this inner lamp is lit, your experience of life changes from the inside out. Some of them spoke of it as a kind of spiritual organ. Others drew it as a halo, a radiant crown. Some called it a third eye. Others simply spoke about seeing the kingdom, not as a place far away after death, but as a reality that can break through within you while you are still very much alive. When the old teacher talked about the body being flooded with light, He was not inviting you into an exercise in imagination to escape the world. He was hinting at the possibility that there is a living radiance already sleeping inside your own nervous system, something that feels less like an abstract idea and more like warmth, clarity, direct knowing. To feel how radical this is, you have to follow him into one of his boldest statements. There is a scene where he walks into the great stone sanctuary of his time, a temple covered in gold and revered as the center where heaven and earth touched. Surrounded by priests and onlookers, he is challenged, and he answers with a sentence that sounds almost offensive. "Tear down this temple," he says, "and in 3 days I will raise it up." People laughed. They had watched that structure crawl out of dust for decades. It had taken entire lifetimes to build. How could a single man rebuild it in 3 days? The line sounds absurd until one of his followers, writing years later with a more mystical ear, quietly adds a comment. He was speaking about the temple of his body. If you let that sink in, an entire world begins to tilt. Perhaps the sacred dwelling was never meant to be limited to walls and altars and curtains. Perhaps the real meeting place of human and divine has always been the living body, trembling and breathing, with its own inner chambers. Imagine for a moment that the sanctuary described in old texts is actually a map of you. The outer courts become the parts of your life that everyone can see, your habits, your routines, your roles. The inner court is the more private space, the shifting landscape of your thoughts and feelings. And then there is the innermost chamber, the place ancient writings called the Holy of Holies, where only a high priest could enter once a year. If you translate that into your own interior language, that deepest room is the center of your mind, the secret heart of your consciousness, where a tiny, hidden structure rests, protected by bone and fluid, pulsing quietly with every day of your life. Many traditions have intuited its importance and given it names that sound like they belong in myth: the seat of the soul, the place where matter and spirit kiss. If the inner chamber of the temple is your brain, and in particular that central, pine cone-shaped gland that waits there in the dark, then the altar is your chest, the beating center where love, grief, courage, and surrender all leave their marks. It is the place where you offer up what you cling to, where your devotion is not an idea but a sensation, a tightness in the throat, a warmth in the ribs. The lampstand in the ancient stories, the branching light that was to be kept burning at all costs, can be seen as an image of that inner eye, that subtle point of awareness that lives behind your thoughts and quietly notices everything. When it is dim, life feels thick, heavy, flat. When it brightens, colors seem sharper, intuitions clearer, moments somehow full of meaning. Even the old story about a ladder reaching from earth to heaven, with beings moving up and down, can be reread as a picture of your own spine, the living column that connects your grounded body to your thinking mind, the path along which sensation, memory, and inspiration travel. Take a moment here. Bring your attention to the feeling of your heart beating in your chest. You do not have to believe anything for this to be real. That soft thump, that steady rhythm, is happening right now. If you'd like, you can place a hand there, just to make the contact more tangible. In the quiet of your own space, you can whisper to yourself, even if part of you is skeptical, and simply see how the words land. I am a temple. Say it gently, as if you were speaking to the youngest part of your own being. I am a temple, not a building of stone, but a living, breathing place where something vast and something human meet. You do not have to force yourself to agree. You only have to notice what stirs inside when you consider the possibility, because the sacred place we spoke of was never made of stone at all, and the light within you was never meant to be locked away. The question is no longer only what happens in distant holy places, but what is happening in the chambers of your own awareness. And if there is a temple, there must be a lamp within it, and that is where the mystery begins to deepen. If there is a temple within you, then the question becomes unavoidable. What is the lamp that was meant to burn at its center, and why does it feel as though so many of us are walking through life in half-light? In the ancient sanctuary, there stood a golden lampstand with 7 branches, never meant to go dark, a symbol of divine presence among the people. That image was not just ritual decoration, it was a clue. Hidden deep within your skull, almost perfectly centered, rests a small gland shaped like a pine cone, quiet, unassuming, easy to overlook. Modern biology tells us it regulates sleep, produces melatonin, and responds to light and darkness. That is true. And yet, it is not the whole story. This tiny structure contains cells that respond to light in ways strikingly similar to the cells in your eyes. It reacts to illumination. It keeps time with the sun. It shifts its chemistry when night falls. Why would such a thing exist at the core of your brain, unless it were meant to mediate more than circadian rhythm? Ancient thinkers were fascinated by it long before microscopes. Some called it the seat of the soul. Others believed it was the bridge where immaterial awareness and physical form meet. In Egyptian symbolism, an eye appears in the center of the head, watching from within. In certain Indian traditions, the point between the brows is described as a center of insight, a subtle organ of perception. They say it opens as consciousness matures. These are not identical systems, but they echo one another like distant bells ringing across valleys. It is as if humanity kept circling around the same interior discovery without always naming it the same way. Over time, however, something curious happened. As institutions solidified and belief became organized, teachings that emphasized direct inner access began to feel dangerous. If the kingdom is truly within you, if the light can be ignited in your own awareness, then you are no longer dependent on an external gatekeeper. You do not need a permanent middleman between your soul and the sacred. That idea is quietly revolutionary. It shifts authority from outside structures to lived experience. In the early centuries after the teacher's death, groups of seekers explored this inner path with intensity. Some of them would later be called Gnostics, a word rooted in direct knowing rather than second-hand belief. They spoke of a divine spark buried in the human being, a fragment of light that had forgotten its origin and needed to awaken. They read the stories symbolically. They saw resurrection not only as a past miracle, but as an inner rising from ignorance into awareness. Other voices, aligned more closely with emerging imperial power, preferred uniform creeds and centralized doctrine. As the Roman Empire embraced Christianity, it also shaped it. Councils were convened, texts were selected, and others were set aside. Writings that leaned heavily toward inner illumination were labeled suspect, even heretical. The Gospel of Thomas, with its emphasis on discovering the light within oneself, was pushed to the margins. The Gospel of Mary, which suggested that insight could arise from direct spiritual experience, faded into obscurity. Over time, the narrative hardened. Humanity was described primarily as fallen, broken, separated from God by a vast and unbridgeable gap. Access to salvation was mediated through institution, ritual, approval. Whether one sees this as necessary order or as consolidation of power, the effect was unmistakable. The emphasis shifted from inner awakening to external conformity. And yet, the older current never fully disappeared. It went underground. It survived in deserts and caves, in whispered teachings, in art that hinted at more than it explained. When you look at paintings of luminous figures with halos radiating from their heads, you are seeing more than artistic style. You are glimpsing an encoded memory. Those circles of light can be read as testimony that some individuals experienced a tangible radiance in consciousness itself, a clarity so intense it felt like light pouring outward. You may have felt faint traces of this yourself, in moments of deep stillness, in prayer, in meditation, in the quiet after tears, a sudden sense of spaciousness, a subtle warmth in the center of the head, a widening of perception that feels both intimate and vast. You might have dismissed it as imagination, but what if it was the lamp flickering? There is also a biological dimension worth considering without exaggeration. The pineal gland can accumulate calcification over time, becoming less flexible in its function. Modern life, saturated with artificial light and constant stimulation, rarely encourages deep stillness. We move from screen to screen, from distraction to distraction, rarely giving our nervous systems the silence in which subtle perception can sharpen. It is not that some grand conspiracy switched off your inner sight. It is that we have drifted away from the conditions that allow it to glow. Still, the possibility remains. In states of profound meditation, in contemplative prayer, in extended solitude, many people across cultures report inner visions, luminous imagery, a felt connection to something larger than their personal story. Neuroscience can describe patterns of activation, waves of electrical activity, shifts in neurotransmitters. It cannot fully capture the meaning of those experiences from the inside. Meaning is lived, not measured. If you are willing, you can experiment gently for yourself. Close your eyes for a moment and bring your awareness to the space slightly behind the point between your eyebrows, as if you were focusing not on the surface but a couple of inches inward. Do not strain. Simply notice. Imagine a small ember there, steady and patient. With each slow breath, picture it glowing a little brighter. You do not need fireworks. Just a subtle sense of warmth or pressure is enough. If you feel nothing dramatic, that is fine. The practice is not about forcing sensation, but about remembering that attention itself is power. Where you place your awareness, energy follows. This is not about escaping reality. It is about inhabiting it more fully. If that inner lamp brightens, even slightly, your perception of daily life can shift. Conversations feel deeper. Decisions feel clearer. Fear loosens its grip. You begin to sense that the sacred is not confined to distant heavens, but woven into the texture of your own consciousness. And here is where the story becomes unsettling for established systems. If you truly internalize that the light of God is already within you, that you can encounter it directly, what happens to structures built on spiritual dependency? What happens to hierarchies that claim exclusive access? When the teacher once said that the kingdom of God is within you, it was not merely poetic. It undermined an entire economic and religious apparatus centered around temple sacrifice and priestly mediation. The temple in Jerusalem was not only a holy site, it was an engine of commerce and authority. To suggest that divinity dwells in the human body itself was more than mystical language. It was a quiet revolution. No wonder such ideas made powerful people uneasy. The more you sit with this, the more you may feel a subtle tension inside yourself. Part of you longs for this direct connection. Another part hesitates, trained by years of being told you are unworthy, incomplete, in need of external rescue. Notice that tension without judging it. It is the meeting point of old conditioning and emerging insight. You are not asked to reject tradition or attack belief. You are invited to look deeper into what those traditions may have been pointing toward all along. If the lamp exists within you, then the next question becomes even more personal. What does it mean to awaken it fully? What does resurrection look like when understood not as a distant event, but as a transformation of consciousness happening here and now? The answers are not abstract. They touch the way you sleep, the way you dream, the way you wake each morning. And that is where we will turn next, because the language of sleep and awakening runs like a hidden thread through the entire story. The language of sleep and awakening has always been more than poetic comfort, and if you follow that thread carefully, you begin to notice something quietly radical unfolding beneath familiar stories. In the ancient accounts, Whenever the teacher encountered death, he often described it as sleep. When a young girl lay lifeless, he said she was only resting. When Lazarus was placed in a tomb, he spoke of him as if he had merely fallen asleep. Those around him misunderstood and even laughed, thinking he was denying reality. But perhaps he was pointing toward a deeper layer of it. Consider your own nightly descent into sleep. Every evening, your body grows still, your awareness withdraws from the outer world, and you enter a different realm entirely. In dreams you travel, speak with the departed, revisit memories, rehearse futures, feel emotions as vivid as waking life. You cross boundaries without moving an inch. During these hours, that small gland at the center of your brain becomes active, releasing melatonin, guiding your rhythms, shifting your state of consciousness. Science can describe the chemistry. It cannot fully account for the experience of being somewhere else while your body lies motionless. The ancients noticed this mystery long before laboratories existed. They saw sleep as a doorway, a temporary dying and returning, a rehearsal of crossing worlds. If that is so, then awakening each morning is a kind of resurrection. You rise from darkness into light. You return from a hidden realm into the visible one. You remember your name, your story, your responsibilities. Yet how often do you truly awaken? How often do you move through the day, half aware, reacting, repeating patterns, living as if on autopilot? It is possible to have your eyes open and still be asleep. It is possible to breathe and yet not feel fully alive. When Paul wrote, "Awake, O sleeper, and rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you," he may have been describing this very shift. Not a distant miracle, but a change in consciousness, a turning inward toward the lamp and outward into the world with new clarity. Resurrection, then, is not confined to a single event in history. It becomes an inner process, a movement from unconsciousness to awareness, from fragmentation to integration, from fear to trust. If the inner eye opens, if the temple within is illuminated, then death itself begins to look different. It no longer appears as annihilation, but as transition, a doorway rather than a wall. The teacher's own story of rising after 3 days can be read as a mythic expression of this pattern. 3 days in darkness, then emergence into light. Whether one holds that story as literal, symbolic, or somewhere in between, its psychological power is undeniable. It mirrors your own cycles of loss and renewal. Times when parts of you collapse, when old identities crumble, when you feel buried beneath grief or confusion. And then, unexpectedly, something rises. A new clarity, a new strength, a sense that what seemed like an ending was also a beginning. The cross, in this symbolic reading, becomes more than an instrument of suffering. It can represent the intersection of heaven and earth within you, the meeting point of vertical aspiration and horizontal human life. It marks the place where ego patterns are exposed and surrendered, where the false self, built from fear and conditioning, is allowed to die so that a deeper self can emerge. This is not about self-condemnation, it is about transformation. The pineal, that subtle inner lamp, becomes a metaphor for this process. When attention turns inward and upward, when awareness expands beyond habitual thought, something shifts. You begin to perceive life through a different lens. Situations that once triggered automatic reactions now invite reflection. People you once judged harshly now appear as fellow travelers, carrying unseen wounds. Even your own shadow, the parts of yourself you would rather hide, becomes material for illumination rather than shame. Living in two worlds at once does not mean escaping the physical. It means seeing the material and the spiritual as intertwined, walking on earth while sensing heaven as an interior state. This is what some have called Christ consciousness, not as a title reserved for one figure, but as a quality of awareness available to human beings. The teacher hinted at this when he told his followers They would do even greater works than he had done. At first glance, that sounds impossible, even arrogant. How could anyone surpass the miracles attributed to him? But if the statement is understood as an invitation rather than a comparison, it changes. It becomes a call to embody the same light, to replicate the awakened state, not to worship it from a distance. There is a progression in his words to his companions. He once called them servants, then friends, and eventually spoke of unity, of sharing the same spirit. That trajectory suggests movement from hierarchy toward participation, from dependence toward co-creation. The idea that you are not fundamentally separate from the divine, that the same life force animating the teacher animates you, challenges deeply ingrained beliefs about worthiness. For centuries, many have been taught that they are broken beyond repair, that salvation is a rare gift granted conditionally. Yet woven through the older texts are statements that disrupt that narrative. You are the light of the world. The kingdom of God is within you. I and the Father are one. You are God's. These lines are often softened or explained away, but they remain. They linger like embers under ash. If taken seriously, they suggest that divinity is not exclusively external. It is relational and internal. It flows through human consciousness. To awaken to that is not to become superior, it is to become responsible. If the prophecy of a second coming is understood symbolically, it may not describe a dramatic descent from the clouds. It may describe the gradual awakening of this Christ consciousness within countless individuals. Each time someone turns inward, lights the lamp, and chooses compassion over fear, something of that prophecy is fulfilled, not through spectacle, but through quiet transformation. You might feel resistance rising even now. That is natural. Foundational beliefs do not shift easily. You are not asked to discard everything you have been taught. You are invited to examine it from within, to ask yourself what your life would look like if you truly believed that the sacred was already alive in you. Not waiting in some distant heaven, not locked behind institutional doors, but breathing in your lungs, beating in your chest, glowing softly at the center of your awareness. Imagine approaching your work, your relationships, your struggles with that sense of inner light. How would you speak differently? How would you forgive? How would you endure hardship? The shift from feeling trapped to feeling empowered does not happen overnight. It unfolds as you return again and again to that quiet inner space. Each evening, as you drift towards sleep, you can bring gentle attention to the center of your head and whisper to yourself, "May I awaken," not only from dreams, but from patterns that no longer serve you. Each morning, as you open your eyes, you can recognize that you are participating in a small resurrection, a new chance to live from a deeper center. If you have stayed with this exploration, it may be because something in you recognizes the pattern, not as a foreign doctrine, but as a forgotten memory. You do not have to declare yourself anything grand. You do not have to claim titles. It is enough to notice that the light flickers when you turn toward it, that the temple feels more real when you inhabit your body fully. That sleep and waking are not just biological events, but symbols of a larger journey. The mystery is not out there waiting to descend. It is unfolding within you, quietly, patiently. And if this is so, then the most important revelation is not that someone else will return to save the world. It is that you are already part of the awakening, a living temple, a bearer of light, discovering that what once seemed forbidden or hidden has always been waiting patiently for your attention. What you have just moved through was never about chasing something distant or waiting for a dramatic sign from the sky. It was about remembering what has been quietly present within you all along. If something stirred while you were listening, if a subtle warmth rose in your chest, or a quiet clarity formed behind your thoughts, that was not imagination playing tricks on you. It was recognition. You were not searching for a distant savior to step into history. You were rediscovering a light that has always lived beneath your own breath. The sacred dwelling we have been talking about was never really a building, and the light at its center was never meant to be shut away. If you sensed even a faint glow, even a soft shift in perception, that is enough. There is no rush. There is no competition. You are not late. You are not behind. You have not been overlooked. The path unfolding in you is moving at the rhythm that is right for your life. Nothing about your questions, your doubts, your longing has been wasted. Each of them has been part of this quiet awakening. You did not stumble here by accident, and you are not standing at the edge of something unfamiliar. You are standing inside your own remembering. The light does not need to be forced. It does not demand performance. It simply asks to be noticed, again and again, in ordinary moments. If you feel calmer now, let that calm settle. If you feel thoughtful, let the thoughts drift without pressure. You are allowed to rest inside this awareness. The story does not end here. It continues gently, layer by layer, wherever you choose to look next. As I sit with everything we have explored together, what stays with me most is not a doctrine or a theory, but a feeling, a quiet sense that something ancient and intimate has been gently uncovered rather than newly invented. To me, this journey into hidden knowledge is less about replacing one belief with another and more about softening the surface of what we were handed so that a deeper layer can breathe. It feels like brushing dust from an old mirror and realizing the reflection was always there. I do not see this as a rejection of faith, but as a widening of it, an invitation to experience the sacred not only as a story from long ago, but as a living presence unfolding inside ordinary moments. And I am curious about you. As you listened, what moved in you? Did something resist? Did something open? Did certain words feel strangely familiar, as if they belonged to you before you ever heard them spoken? I would truly love to hear how this landed in your own life. If you feel called to share, you can write a simple sentence in the comments, perhaps something like, "I am remembering," or even just a word that captures your experience. Your voice matters here. If this reflection resonated, gently let me know by liking the video and subscribing so we can continue exploring these hidden threads together. Your presence, your attention, your willingness to look within are what give these conversations life. Thank you for walking through this with me and for supporting this space with your time and your heart.